So our topic for today is about the Article 6 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, and this is all about the Legislative Department. By the way, I'm Shani Bayungan, one of the reporters regarding this topic. Section 1 stated that the legislative power shall be vested in the Congress. So the Congress has two basic structures. The first is the unicameral structure, which it consists of one chamber or house, while the second is the bicameral structure, in which it consists of two chambers or house. And the Philippines has a bicameral structure, so we have the Senate and the House of Representatives. So let us define the legislative power. It is the authority under the Constitution to make the law, alter it, or repeal it when needed. So what is the law? It is the statutes in which are the written enactment of the legislature governing the relations of the people among themselves or between them and the government and its agency. Through the law, the legislative defines the rights and duties of the citizens, imposes taxes and appropriate funds. They also defines the crimes and provide punishment for it, creates and abolishes government offices in which they also determine their jurisdictions and functions. So generally speaking, there is a law in order to regulate the human conduct and the use of property to promote the common good. Under the 1987 Philippine Constitution, the power to make, amend, or propose the law is extended to its people. Why? Because the sovereignty resides in them. And this is done in two ways. The first is initiative, wherein the authority is reserved to the people through the direct participation of the electorate in the lawmaking processes, and this is done in either national or local level. The second is the referendum, in which the people are being referred on to directly to question the law, and this is done for their approval or rejection. So the scope for the legislative power of the Congress is either plenary or general, and this grants for all the legislative power for all the purposes of the civil government. So we have four classifications of power of Congress. The first one is the general power, second is a specific power, third is the implied power, and fourth is the inherent power. So, when we say general legislative power, it is the power to enact laws intended to be the rule of conduct. So, it is defined by the Constitution unless the Constitution itself limit the subject matter in which it may legislate. So, the specific power of the Congress is the power in which the Constitution expressly directs or authorizes the Congress to exercise. So, example of the specific power of the Congress is the power to declare the existence of state of war, power to delegate emergency powers to the President, power to taxations, power to appropriations, power to confer grant of amnesty, power to confer treaties through the Senate or House of Representatives, and power to act as board of canvassers in the presidential's or vice presidential's elections. So, the next power of the Congress is the implied power. So, it is the power necessary for the effective exercise of the powers of the Congress. An example of this is the power to conduct an investigations in the aid of legislations or power to conduct an investigations to determine the rules of its proceedings. So, the inherent power of the Congress is the power in which it can be possessed and exercised by any government. It is a non-delegable power, which means that there is no need for legislation or constitutional grant. It is the fundamental power of the states, mainly the power to taxations, police power, and the eminent domain. So now let's proceed to the principles of separations of power. Under the presidential system, we have the executive, legislative, and the judicials, while in parliamentary system we have policy making and policy execution, and in French presidential, so we have the parliament system in which there is a variant of two government. And the Philippines is under the presidential system, so we have legislative, judicials, and executive branches of the government. So what is the principles of checks and balances? It is a constitutional provisions, authorizes a considerable amount of encroachments or checking by one department in the affairs of the others. So it is done to prevent the too much execution of power of any one branch over the other. So congressmen have two parliamentary privileges. The first one is the privilege from arrest. So this means that they have the immunity from offenses punishable by not more than 6 years of imprisonment. And the second one is the privilege of speech and debate. So which means that they have the immunity from libel and slander. And these privileges is only enacted while the Congress is in session. So Section 2 stated that Senate shall be composed of 24 senators who shall be elected at large by the qualified voters of the Philippines as may be provided by law. So meaning that our government only has a seat for 24 elected senators. Section 3 stated that no person shall be a senator unless he is a natural-born citizen of the Philippines, is at least 35 years of age on the day of the election, able to read and write, a registered voter, and is a resident of the Philippines for not less than 2 years preceding the day of the election. But who are the registered voter of the Philippines? So he is the one who registered himself and has all the qualifications of voter that we have tackled under the Article 5 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. And what is a residence? So it is one permanent home and never intended to live. So Section 4 is all about the term of office of the senator. So it is stated here that it shall be 6 years and shall commence, unless otherwise provided by law, at noon of the 30th day of June next following their election. And no senator shall serve for more than 2 consecutive terms. So meaning that since we have an election at the month of May, the senator may start to serve their purpose at noon of the 30th day of June. It is also stated here that voluntarily renunciation of the office for any length of time shall not be considered as an interruption in the continuity of his service for the full term in which he was elected. So, if in case that a senator voluntarily gave up his seat or position in the Senate, it will be vacant and it may be filled through a regular or special election. And in either circumstances, the one elected merely sits for the unexpired term only. So the structure and dynamics of the legislative department. The Senate President and the House Speaker shall be elected by the majority vote. Other officers, procedures, and the discipline of each member is at the discretion of each house. Each house shall maintain a journal and record of the proceedings, and neither house can adjourn without the consent of the other while the Congress is in session. Now let's talk about the officers of the Senate. The first one is the President pro tempore, Majority Floor Leader, Minority Floor Leader, Secretary, and the Sergeant at Arms. So that concludes my report. Let's now hear the report of the next sections.
Article 6, the Legislative Department. Section 5, which is the composition of House Representatives. Section 5, not more than 250 members who shall be elected from the legislative district appointed among the province, cities, and the metropolitan Manila area according to the number of their respective inhabitants. So, ang sinasabi po dito is lahat po ng House of Representatives is nabubuo ng 250 members. Ang example po dito is yung mga congressman natin. So, composition of House Representatives. The party list representative shall constitute 20% of the total number of representatives, include those under the party list. So, pagdating po sa House of Representative, meron pa rin pong puwang or upuan na ibibigay or posisyon para sa mga nanhalong party list. So, ang isang party list po, halimbawa, kung Gabriela po, is magkakaroon po sila ng botohan kung sino po yung magre-representa sa kanila sa House of Representatives. So, naroon po yung mga pwede po silang maging boses ng mga so they can represent our laborer, the urban poor, the indigenous culture, and also the women, youth, such sectors that may provide by law, except for the religious sector. Then next is Section 6. Qualification of member of House of Representatives. First is citizen of the Philippines at least 25 years old of age on the day of election. So sinasabi dito is dapat daw is isa kang Filipino citizenship. At bago ang election ay dapat ikaw ay nasa edad na 25. Hindi daw po pwede ang 24 pababa. Next is able to read and write, marunong magbasa at magsulat, except the party list of representative. Dapat daw po hindi ka po isang kabilang sa mga tumatakbo rin na party list. At mahalaga rin po itong registered voter in the district, he shall be elected. So, kailangan syempre po, alangan naman tatakbo ka sa isang distrikto nang hindi ka naka-registered doon po sa ano. So, mahalaga pong naka-registered ka doon sa district na pagtatakbuhan mo, which is kung tatakbo ka na congressman. Resident there for a period not less than 1 year immediately preceding the day of election. So, kailangan din po kung tatakbo ka sa isang distrikto na to, kailangan din po na nakatira ka na dito 1 year and up po. Hindi po pwede yung mga ilang months ka pa lang po nakatira dito tapos biglang gusto mo na tumakbong congressman. Section 7. The members of the House of Representatives shall be elected for the term of 3 years, which shall be begin, unless otherwise provided by law, at the noon in the 30th day of June next the following to their term election. No member of House Representative shall serve for more than 3 years consecutive terms. So sinasabi po na dito dapat po talaga binoto ang isang representative or ang isang representante. Hindi po siya pwedeng i-appoint. Ang ano po dito is kailangan po ng mga boto ng mamamayan. At meron lang po siyang pwede lang po siyang tumagal hanggang 3 termino. Then next, voluntary renunciation of the office of any length of time shall not be considered as an interruption in the continuity of his service for the full terms of he is elected.
Article 6, Section 8, the regular election of the senators and the members of the House of Representatives shall be held on the second Monday of May. So tuwing second Monday of May lamang ginaganap ang botohan ng mga senado at ng miyembro ng House of the Representatives. Article 6, Section 9, in case of vacancy in the Senate or in the House of Representatives, a special election may be called to fill such vacancy the manner prescribed by the law. But the senator or member of the House of Representatives thus elected shall serve only for the unexpired term. So there are 2 kinds of election for member of Congress. First is the regular election na dapat ginaganap tuwing second Monday of May. Ang pangalawa naman ay special election na ginaganap kung may bakante sa Senado para mapunan yung bakante prescribed by the law. Sa Article 6, Section 10, the salaries of senators and members of the House of Representatives shall be determined by the law. No increase in said compensation shall take effect until after the expiration of full term of all the members of the Senate and in the House of Representatives approving such increase. Yung mga sweldo daw ng mga senador ay determinado ng batas at walang pagtaas ng sweldo na magaganap hanggang matapos ang kanilang termino o panunungkulan.
Section 11. A senator or member of the House of Representatives shall, in all offenses, punishable by not more than 6 years imprisonment, be privileged from arrest while the Congress is in session, freedom from being questioned from any speech or debate in the Congress, in any committee thereof. Ang ibig sabihin nito, ang isang senador sa lahat ng mga paglabag na may parusang pagkabilanggong hindi higit sa 6 na taon ay dapat magkaroon ng pribilehiyo laban sa pagkakaaresto habang may sesyon ng Kongreso at hindi sila dapat tanungin o papanagutin sa alinmang bahagi ng lugar dahil sa talumpati o debate ng Kongreso o sa alinmang komite nito. Ito ay dahil dapat ang kanilang mga statement ay may konektado o relasyon doon sa performance of legislative duties. Freedom from arrest of members of Congress. While Congress is in session, meron nga silang tinatawag na parliamentary immunity or legislative immunity na kung saan every member of Congress entitled doon sa pribilehiyong iyon laban sa pagkakaaresto while Congress is in session, whether or not he is attending session. Meron pa nga tinatawag na privilege speech na isa ring parliamentary immunity na kung saan every member of Congress enjoyed it and they protected it from civil action katulad ng slander at libel. At ang purpose nga ng mga ito is not to protect the members against the prosecution for their own benefit but to enable them as representatives of the people na mag-execute ng kanilang mga tanggapan na walang takot sa pag-uusig. Section 12. All members of the Senate and the House of Representatives shall upon assumption of office make a full disclosure of their financial and business interests. They shall notify the House concerned of a potential conflict of interest that may arise from the filing of a proposed legislation of which they are authors. Ang ibig sabihin nga nito, ang lahat ng kagawad ng Senado dapat sa simula ng kanilang panunungkulan ay dapat magsagawa sila ng isang ganap na pagsisiwalat ng kanilang mga interes pagdating sa pananalapi at pagnenegosyo. Dapat din ipapatid nila sa kinauukulan na maaaring umusbong ang salungat na interes sa paghaharap ng isang panukalang pagsasabatas na sila mismo ang may akda. Pero, if a member of Congress withhold or tinago nila mismo ang kanilang mga interes, ay maaari silang masuspend or even expelled by the chamber where he belongs. Section 13. No senator or member of the House of Representatives may hold any other office or employment in the government or any subdivision, agency, or instrumentality thereof, including government-owned or controlled corporations or their subsidiaries, during his term without forfeiting his seat. Neither he shall be appointed to any office which have been created or the emoluments thereof increased during the term for which he was elected. Ang ibig sabihin nito, ang isang senador ay hindi sila maaaring humawak sa panahon ng kanilang panunungkulan ng iba pang katungkulan o pagkakaempleyado sa loob mismo ng pamahalaan o sa ibang sangay nito, katulad na lang ng korporasyong ari o kontrolado mismo ng pamahalaan na hindi sila magbibitaw sa kanilang mga tungkulin. Hindi rin dapat sila maharap sa alinmang katungkulan na maaaring maglikha o maragdagan ng kanilang mga sahod sa panahon ng kanilang panunungkulan kung saan sila hinalal.
Section 14. No senators or members of the House of Representatives may personally appear as counsel before any court or justice or before the electoral tribunals or quasi-judicial and other administrative body. It is stated there that
no senators must has their personal appeal in any court. The second one is neither shall be directly or indirectly be interested financially in any contract with or in any franchise or special privilege granted by government or in any special subdivision, agency, or instrumentality thereof, including any government-owned or controlled corporation or a subsidiary during his term of office. It is stated there that no senator must hand in the process of making money in the government. The third one is he shall not intervene in any matter before any office of the government for his pecuniary benefit or where he may be called upon to act on account of his office. So, in here, it is clearly stated that no senator must discuss himself for his own benefits. Section 15. The Congress shall convene once every year on the fourth Monday of July for its regular session unless a different date is fixed by law. Section 15 talks about session. Session is the annual series of meetings and businesses to be tackled about in Congress. So we all know, once every year, the Congress is set or held a meeting to be able them to talk about a agenda for our nation. There are three kinds of session: the regular session, special session, and joint session. When we talk about regular session, it is held once a year on the fourth Monday of July, except Saturday, Sunday, and legal holidays. The second one is special session. The President may call upon a special session at any times, and it is urgent meeting for specific purpose. The third one is joint session. The separate decision-making bodies, the upper house and the lower house, meet together for a specific purpose or national concern. Section 16. The Senate shall elect its president in the House of Representatives its speaker. Since Philippine Congress is composed of two houses, which is Senate, who is composed of 24 senators, and House of Representatives, who is composed of not more than 250 members, the upper house needs their president, and the lower house or the House of Representatives its speaker, so that the two has its own representative of the House in Assembly. Let us talk about the three important terms in Section 16. The first one is quorum, the second one is rules of procedure, and the third one is legislative journal. The first one is quorum. When we talk about quorum, it is the required number of members each house to be present to transact business during regular or special session. In here, the required number of members is competent to be able to talk about their businesses. And on the other hand, it is consists of 1/2 plus 1 of members in the body. The second one is rules of procedure. It is the set of rules made by lawmaking body to regulate the manner of conducting made and businesses. It is simply the process of their meeting. The last one is the legislative journal. Legislative journal, it is the official record of what is done and passed in legislative assembly. The purpose is, first, to provide the public a record of the proceeding of the Congress. The second one is to enable people to know easily how the representatives fulfill their duty.
Hi everyone, I am Mary Joy Abergonda from Baps 2 to 6. Ang report ko po is Article 6, Section 17, 18, 19. Under the Article 17 is the Senate of the House Representatives shall each have an election of electrical tribunal. So, ang sinasabi po dito is kailangan po ng 9 para sa electrical tribunal. So, yung 3 po manggagaling sa justice ng Supreme Court. Tapos, yung 6 naman po is manggagaling sa Senate of House of Representatives. Article 6, Sections 18 na po tayo. So, composition of commission on appointment. So, kailangan po ng 12 na senator, tapos po kailangan po dun sa 12 na senator na yun is meron po dapat na pinaka-president no 12 na president na senator na yun po. Tapos po dun po kailangan po ng bawat isang miyembro ng commission on appointment ng kani-kanilang party list po. Ayun lang po yung ibig sabihin ng Section 17. Under the Article 19 po is the Electoral Tribunal and the Commission on Appointment shall be number 1. Constitute with 13 days after the Senate and the House Representative shall have been organized with the election of the President and Speaker. So, after 30 days daw po, kailangan organized na yung Senate of Representative kasi dapat may napili na rin po silang president nito. Then, yung number 2 naman po is the commission on appointment shall meet only while the Congress in session and call of its chairman or majority of its all members to discharge such power function as are herein conferred upon it. So, magpupulong-pulong lang po sila if meron talaga session yung Congress. For example po, kailangan po nila magbotohan so that dun po magkakaroon po ng meeting.
Good morning, I am Sir Luis Herrero and I am from Baps 26 and I will report to you for today Article 6, Sections 20 to 22. So for Section 20, the records and books of accounts of the Congress shall be preserved and be open to the public in attendance with law, and such book shall be audited by the Commission on Audit, which shall publish annually an itemized list of amounts paid to and expenses incurred for each member. So dito sinasabi na yung mga libro, yung mga libro na naglalaman ng mga expenses, yung mga projects ng isang senador or ng isang mambabatas ay kailangang ilabas sa tao. Bakit? Para sa gayon, makita ng mga tao kung saan napupunta yung pera na ibinabayad nila sa tax na kinukuha ng government. Kung ako rin naman ay isang taxpayer, hahanapin ko rin naman. Siyempre, hindi naman ako tumatain ng pera dito. Pinaghihirapan ko din naman yon. Dugot pawis ko yon. Siyempre, karapatan ko rin naman na malaman kung saan napunta yung pera. Diba? At, pero, hindi mo yun pwedeng ilabas basta-basta na nari ako senador. Tapos may issue sa akin about sa pera. O ayan, hindi mo pwede ipanduldulan sa mukha ng mga tao na, eto yung pera nyo, eto yung, eto ganyan, eto ganito. Hindi. Kailangan, nasa legal process pa rin. Kasi hindi rin naman pwede na basta-basta yun makita. Kasi nga, pwede yun magamit na pang-blackmail sa isang politician. Meron din tayong isang kagawaran, which is the Commission on Audit. Sila ang may karapatan para maglabas nun annually sa mga tao. Taon-taon, kailangan nilang i-report yun sa mga tao. At sila din, yung komisyon na kukuha nun doon sa mga senador at sa mga mambabatas. Kasi nga, di ba, doon, very din kasi kumbaga ba, sensitive. Medyo sensitive kasi yung yung nandun sa mga libro. Kasi nga, katulad ng paulit-ulit ko sinasabi, yun yung, nilalaman kasi noon, kadalasan, yung mga project, like for example, yung mga nagpagawa ako tulay, yung date kung kailan pinasimulan, yung date kung kailan natapos, magkano budget, sino contractor, building permit noon, lahat ng permit nandoon. Kaya hindi talaga dapat siya basta-basta inilalabas. Pero syempre, kailangan makita ng mga tao. Section 21. The Senate or the House of Representatives or any of its respective committees may conduct inquiries in aid of legislation in accordance with its duly published rules of procedure. The rights of persons appearing in or affected by such inquiries shall be respected. Halimbawa, ang isang senador o ang isang mambabatas ay may propose na law. Siyempre, bago yon maisabatas, kailangan makita muna kung ito bang law na to, makakatulong ba to sa sambayan ng Pilipino. Wala ba tong maaapakang tao? Wala ba tong masasagasaan na ibang law? Kasi aminin man natin, tayo, napakadami nating law, pero hindi naman na isasagawa ng maayos. Like for example, yung bawal ganito, bawal ganyan, kakasuhan ka nito, kakasuhan ko niyan. Pero wala naman nangyayari. Kaya, syempre, kailangan natin timbangin muna kung ito bang law na to, kailangan ba natin talaga to? Or baka naman mamaya, may kaparehas na law to na matagal nang nando sa konstitusyon natin at mas maganda na bigyan natin ng pansin. And why not we need to try to practice it kaysa naman maggawa ng bago na namang law. At kapag nagkaroon sila or nag-conduct sila ng inquiries o pagtatanong sa isang certain like for example, department or commission, kailangan respetuhin nila kung ano man yung magiging sagot sa kanila nung tao na yon. Like for example, kung ayaw ng isang department na yon at gusto ng commission, wala kang magagawa. You cannot please everybody. Kasi nga, meron silang kanya-kanyang opinion. Kung yun yung opinion ng department na to, respect it. Kung gusto nito, edi okay. Pero kung ayaw, wag pilitin. At kung ayaw din nila magsalita, wala tayong magagawa. Hindi mo sila kailangan pilitin. Kasi nga, may human rights. At baka mamaya, ikaw pa yung masampahan ng kaso sa pagpilit mo sa kanila. Section 22. The heads of department may upon their own initiative, with the consent of the President, or upon the request of either House, as the rules of each House shall provide, appear before and be heard by such House on any matters pertaining to their departments. Written questions shall be submitted to the President of the Senate or the Speaker of the House of Representatives at least 3 days before their scheduled appearance. Interpellation shall not be limited to written question, but may covers matter related thereto, when the security of the state or the public interest so requires, and the Presidents of States, in writing, in appearance shall be conducted in executive session. So dito naman, sinasabi na halimbawa nagkaroon ng issue with regarding sa Department of Energy. Tapos nalaman nila na magkakaroon ng Senate hearing regarding that. Pwede silang magkusang loob na humingi ng request sa Senate President kung pwede silang dumalo doon sa Senate hearing para syempre maipropose naman din or maipakita naman kung ano yung side nila. Kasi nga 'di ba, there is always two sides of the story. Yung iba facts at yung isa gawa-gawa lang. Kaya maganda rin kung magkaroon ng ganong initiative para syempre maipakita mo muna kung ano din syempre yung side mo. Kung hindi man sila magkusa, ang isang bagay ay pwede silang i-invite ng mismong Senate President at saka ng House Speaker para dumalo doon sa Senate hearing na yon. Regarding doon naman sa sa mga tanong na itatanong sa kanila in the Senate hearing, yung Senate Senador na naka-assign sa particular issue na yon, magsasubmit siya ng questions at least 3 days before the scheduled Senate hearing sa Senate President. Or kung nandun tayo sa House Speaker, ay sa House of Representatives, sa House Speaker yon ipapasa. Bakit ganon? Siyempre para makita din ng para mag-guide din yung Senate President kung ano yung nangyayari doon sa Senate hearing. Hindi naman din hindi naman malilimitahan yung meeting sa pagtatanong doon sa mga question na naihanda at naipasa doon sa Senate President. Pwede din sila magtanong ng mga questions, pero regarding dapat doon sa issue. Hindi pwedeng lumabas or beyond that issue yung mga itatanong. Like for example, for clarification na, halimbawa may mga facts na nilabas. Kasi po may pumutok po na planta o ganito ganyan. Sasabihin, wala doon sa ipinasang question kung ano yung dahilan, sino yung mga nandoon. Pwede naman yung itanong. Para syempre din, mas malinaw, mas accurate, malalaman natin kung ano ba talaga yung naging nangyari.
Okay, Section 23. The Congress shall have the sole power to declare the existence of a state war. In times of war or other national emergency, the Congress may authorize the President for a limited period and subject to such restrictions as it may prescribe to exercise powers necessary and proper to carry out the declared national policy. Unless sooner withdrawn by resolution of the Congress, such powers shall cease upon the next adjournment thereof. So, ang Congress daw po sa pamamagitan ng 2/3 ng boto ng dalawang kapulungan ay magtitipon sa session sa magkahiwalay na pagboto. So, ang Kongreso ay yung may tanging kapangyarihang magpahayag ng pag-iral or ng existence of a state war. So, in times of war, o mga kagipitan, o mga panahon ng mga pambansang kagipitan o digma, ang Kongreso daw po sa pamamagitan ng batas ay maaaring magpahintulot sa Pangulo sa isang natatakdang panahon at sa ilalim ng mga paghihigpit na maaaring ilagda nito. So, yung Kongreso gumagamit ng mga kapangyarihang kinakailangan at naangkop upang isagawa ang idineklarang pambansang patakaran. Ngunit, pwede po itong bawiin ng Kongreso sa pamamagitan po ng kasiyahan ng Kongreso sa susunod po na pagpupulong. Okay, Section 24. All appropriation, revenue, or tariff bills authorizing increase of the public debt, bills of local application, and private bills shall originate exclusively in the House of Representatives. So, appropriation bill, the primary and specific aim of which is to make appropriations of money from the public treasury. So, sa Section 24 daw po, ang lahat ng mga panukalang batas tulad ng revenue o taripa, mga panukalang batas na nagpapahintulot sa pagdaragdag ng utang ng pambayan, bills of local application and private bills panukalang batas sa pangsarili ay dapat magmula daw po sa kapulungan ng mga kinatawan lamang. So, yung dapat exclusively lang po siya sa in the House of Representatives, no? But yung Senado, they may propose or concur with amendments. So there are kinds of appropriations. Number one is the annual or general appropriations. They set aside annual expenses for the general operations of the government. So, sa number one daw po, sineset aside yung mga taunang gastos para po sa mga pangkahalatang operations ng ating gobyerno. So, number two, special or supplemental appropriations include all appropriations not contained in the budget. So, dito daw po sa number two, kasama daw po dito yung lahat ng appropriations na hindi na contained, no? Hindi kasama dun sa budget ng gobyerno. So, sa number three, specific appropriations sets aside unnamed sum of money for the payment of a particular expense. So, dito daw po hindi pinapansin yung kabuoang halaga, no, ng pera para po dun sa particular na expenses para mabayaran yung mga particular expenses na ito. So, sa number 4, continuing appropriations, one which provides a definite sum to be always available year to year. So, yung appropriation na daw po ito, siya nagpo-provide ng definite sum na dapat ay na, na dapat ay available o handa taon-taon. So, meaning of other bills. Number one is the revenue bill. Primary purpose is to raise the revenue. So, second, the tariff bill, reference to one imposing custom. So, third, bill authorizing increase of the public debt. One which creates public indebtedness, such as a bill providing for the issuance of bonds and other forms of obligation. So, the fourth one is bill of local application, affecting purely local or municipal concerns like one creating a city or municipality or changing its names. So fifth and last, the private bill, affecting purely private interests such as one granting a franchise to a person or corporation or compensation to a person for damages suffered by him by which the government considers itself liable. So, Section 25, yung budget na po. Financial program of the national government for a designated calendar year. So, number one, the Congress may not increase the appropriations recommended by the President for the operation of the governments specified in the budget. Two, the provision or enactment shall be embraced in the General Appropriations Bill unless it relates specifically to some particular appropriations therein. Third, the procedure in approving appropriations for the Congress shall follow the procedure for approving appropriations for the departments and agency. Fourth, a special appropriations bill shall specify the purpose for which it is intended and shall be supported by funds actually available as certified by the National Treasurer or to be raised by a corresponding revenue proposal therein. So, fifth, no law shall pass authorizing any transfer of appropriations. Sixth, discretionary funds appropriated for particular officials shall be disbursed only for public purposes. 7. If Congress failed to pass the General Appropriations Bill for the ensuing fiscal year, the General Appropriation Law for the preceding fiscal year shall be deemed reenacted and shall remain in force and effect until the General Appropriations Bill is passed by the Congress. So, sa Section 25 daw po, maaaring hindi diktagan ng Kongreso yung mga appropriations na inirekomenda ng Pangulo para sa daw po, pagpapakilos o operasyon ng pamahalaan ayon sa tinukay na budget daw po. Dapat daw po ang itakda ng batas ang nilalaman at paraan ng paghahanda ng budget. So, hindi dapat mapaloob ang anumang tadhana o pagsasabatas sa panukalang batas ng pangkahalatan o appropriations na kung ito ay tumutukoy sa isang particular na ano lamang, appropriation or tama, appropriation. Ah, ang anumang ano po, appropriation o pagsasabatas dapat ay sumaklaw lamang sa tinutukoy na appropriation. So, yung proseso daw po ng pag-aaproba ng appropriation ng Congress ay dapat sinusunod yung strictong procedure ng pag-aproba ng appropriations para sa ibang departamento or agencies. So, yung special appropriation naman po or a special appropriation bill dapat daw po is specify yung purpose, no? So, kung saan siya intended or saan siya pinag-uukulan. Pinag-uukulan. And it should be supported by the funds actually available as certified by the National Treasurer or to be raised by a corresponding revenue post na po. So, sa number 5, hindi dapat mapagtibay ng isang batas na magpapahintulot ng anumang paglipat ng appropriation. Gayunman po, ang Pangulo ng Senado, ang Speaker ng Kapulungan ng mga Kinatawan, ang punong maestrado ng taas-taasang hukuman at ang mga puno ng mga komisyong konstitusyonal ay maaring pahintulutan sa pamamagitan ng batas na dagdagan ng ang alinmang item sa panukalang batas sa pangkahalatang mga pangkahalatang or respective appropriations. So, ang mga pondong diskresyonaryo na inilaan para sa partikular na mga opisyal ay dapat na ipangbayad lamang ukol sa mga layuning pambayan na patutunayan ng nararapat na mga vouchers at isa sa ilalim ng mga panuntunan na maaaring itakda ng batas. So, kung sa katapusan ng alinmang taong physical po or in the end, any fiscal year, ang Kongreso ay hindi makapagpatibay ng panukalang batas ng pangkahalatang appropriations ukol sa pumapasok na fiscal year, no? Ang panukalang batas ay pangkahalata ng mga appropriation ukol sa nakaraang taong sa nakaraang fiscal year ay dapat na manatiling umiiral at may bisa hanggang sa mapagpatibay ng Kongreso ang panukalang batas ng pangkalahatang appropriations pag ito po ay naipasa.
Section 26 says that every bill passed by Congress shall embrace only one subject which shall be expressed in the title thereof. No bill passed by either house shall become a law unless it has passed 3 readings on separate days, and printed copies thereof in its final form have been distributed to its members 3 days before its passage, except when the President certifies the necessity of its immediate enactment to meet a public calamity or emergency. Upon the last reading of a bill, no amendment thereto shall be allowed, and the vote thereon shall be taken immediately thereafter, and the yes and nays entered in the journal. In Section 26, requirements as to subject and title of the bill, there should only be one title, one subject. It is to prevent hodgepodge or log-rolling legislation, and to prevent also surprise or fraud upon legislature, and to fairly appraise the people. In the passage of the bill, there are steps that needs to be followed. The first step is the first reading. In first reading, any member of either house may present a proposed bill signed by him for first reading and for reference to the proper committee. The second step is the referral to the appropriate committee. After first reading, the bill is referred to the proper committee for study and consideration. Third step is second reading. If the bill is favored by the committee, it is then forwarded to the Committee on Rules. And the fourth step is debate. In debate, general debates are open, and amendments may be proposed by any member of the Congress. Then the fifth step, printing and distribution. If the bill is after debate, the bill is then ordered to its final form. After being ordered to its final form, there goes third reading, the sixth step. On the third reading, only the title of the bill is read on the floor and nominal voting are held. After that, if approved, the bill is passed to other house where it will take the same procedures, or it is also the referral to the other house. After being referred to the other house and followed first to third reading, it will then be submitted to joint bicameral committee. If there are any differences between the House bill and the Senate's amended version or vice versa are submitted to a conference committee of member of any house of both houses. After that, it will then be submitted to the President. A bill approved on third reading shall be printed and submitted to the President for his approval or disapproval. It is either the President signed the bill and it will lapse into the law, or will send it back to the Senate or House of Representatives with a veto message from the President. Section 27. Every bill passed by Congress shall, before it becomes a law, be presented to the President. If he approves the same, he shall sign it. If otherwise, he shall veto it and return the same within his objections to the House where it originated, which shall enter the objections at large in its journal and proceed to reconsider it. If after such reconsideration, two-thirds of all members of such House shall agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent together with the objections to the other House, by which it shall likewise be reconsidered. And if approved by two-thirds of all members of that House, it shall become a law. In all such cases, the votes of each House shall be determined by yes or nays, and the names of the members voting for or against shall be entered in its journal. The President shall communicate his veto of any bill to the House where it originated within 30 days after the date of receipt thereof. Otherwise, it shall become a law as if he had signed it. The President shall have the power to veto any particular item or items in an appropriation, revenue, or tariff bill, but the veto shall not affect the item or items to which he does not object. Before we proceed to the next part, let us differentiate what is a bill from a statute. A bill, it is a draft of law submitted to the consideration of a legislative body for its adoption, while a statute, it is a written will of the legislature as an organized body expressed according to the form necessary to constitute it into a law of the state, and the term act is often used in referring to a statute. There are formal parts of the law. The first part is the title. It announces the subject matter of the act. The second one is the preamble. It follows the title and precedes the enacting clause. Third one is the enacting clause. It serves as a formal mean of identifying legislative body that enacts the law. Fourth formal part is the body. It is a portion containing the proposed law or statute itself. The fifth part is the effectivity clause. It is a portion providing for the time when the law shall take effect, and a law takes effect in 15 days following the completion of its publication in the official gazette. I have mentioned earlier the word veto. The word veto is a Latin term for I forbid or deny. It is the power vested in the President to disapprove acts passed by the Congress. The purpose of a veto is to enable the executive department to protect its integrity as an equal branch of the government and to provide a check on hasty, corrupt or ill-considered legislation, and that there is also resolution. A resolution is defined as a formal expression of opinions, will, or intent by an official body or assembled group. There are three kinds of resolution. The first one is simple, if passed by either house for its exclusive use or purpose. A simple resolution deals with matters entirely within the prerogative of one House of Congress, such as adopting or receiving its own rules. A simple resolution is not considered by the other chamber and is not sent to the President for his signature. Like a concurrent resolution, it has no effect and force of a law. Second one is concurrent resolution. If passed independently in one house and ratified by the other in the same manner as a bill. A concurrent resolution is usually designated in the Senate. It is used for matters affecting the operations of both houses and must be passed in the same form by both of them. Concurrent resolutions are used to fix the time of adjournment of a Congress and to express the sense of Congress on an issue. And the third type or kind of resolution is joint resolution. It is if approved by both House meeting on joint session but voting separately. A joint resolution, like a bill, requires the approval of both houses and the signature of the President. It has the force and effect of a law if approved. The latter generally is used when dealing with a single item or issue, such as a continuing or emergency appropriations bill. Section 28. The rule of taxation shall be uniform and equitable. The Congress shall evolve a progressive system of taxation. The Congress may, by law, authorize the President to fix within specified limits and subject to such limitations and restrictions as it may impose tariff rates, imports and export quotas, tonnage and wharfage dues, and other duties are imposed within the framework of the National Development Program of the government. Charitable institutions, churches, and personages or convents appurtenant thereto, mosques, non-profit cemeteries, and all lands, buildings, and improvements actually, directly, and exclusively used for religious, charitable, or educational purposes shall be exempt from taxation. No law granting any tax exemption shall be passed without the concurrence of a majority of all the members of the Congress. The Section 28, or simply known as the Rule of Taxation, which shall be uniform and equitable. The uniformity of taxation means that all taxable articles or properties of the same class shall be taxed at the same rate and implies equality in burden, not in amount. Exemption at certain entities and properties from tax. Test of exemption covers only property taxes and not other taxes. Note that only those which are non-profit or are exempted from the tax. Before we proceed, let us differentiate what is a bill from a statute. A bill is a draft of law submitted to the consideration of a legislative body for its adoption, while a statute, it is a written will of the legislature as an organized body expressed according to the form necessary to constitute into a law of the state, and the term act is often used in referring.
So good morning everyone, my name is Maria Magdalena M. Bolivar from Baps 26, and today I'm going to report the Article 6 of Section 29 to Section 32. So for Section 29.1, no money shall be paid out of the Treasury except in the pursuance of the appropriation made by the law. So when we say the power of appropriation of the law, it is an act of legislative to check upon the disturbing power of the president or the heads of the department of the executive officials. So appropriation. Appropriation, it is nothing more than the authorization by the law that money may be paid out of the public treasury. Yun yung sinasabing authorization to get money from the public treasury. So for section 29.2, no public money or property shall be appropriated, applied, paid, or employed directly or indirectly for the use, benefit, or support of any sector, church, denomination, sectarian, institution, or system of religion, or any priest or preacher, minister, or other religious teacher. So, prohibition that is not violated kapag mayroon tayong 5. One is payment given as a compensation. When we say payment given as a compensation, given ito sa mga priest who is assigned to the armed forces. And then second, religious use incidental. It is the use of public street for religious processions, masses at the Rizal Park, and the benefits of SSS of the priest. And number 3, the use of public into nature. And then number 4, payment based on contract. Payment based on contract, it is the rents that are paid for the portion of the church or other building that is being leased by the government. And the number 5, the last, the consideration received, it is an exchange of the donation of the church to the government. And then section 29.3, all money collected on any tax or for a special purpose shall be treated as a special fund and paid out for such purpose only. If the purpose for which a special fund was created has been fulfilled or abandoned, the balance, if any, shall be transferred to the general funds of the government. So kapag meron tayong fund na pinaglaanan, which is special project man yan or hindi, basta ang money na na-collect from tax, kung ang bagay na yon, kung ang paglalaanan ng pera na yon ay hindi nagamit, may sobra, or kung ano man, ito ay mapupunta sa funds ng ating government. Hindi siya pwedeng mapunta kung saan lamang. So in section 30, it says that no law shall be passed increasing the appellate jurisdiction of the Supreme Court as provided in this Constitution without its advice and concurrence. So in all, hindi ka pwedeng mag-pass ng law na walang jurisdiction ng Supreme Court at walang advice na nanggaling dito. Because the Supreme Court accords to give the weight to cases that should be alleviated to further reviews by the factual finding of the court. So for section 31, it says that no law granting the title of royalty or nobility shall be enacted, because this is the prohibition against granting title of royalty or nobility. First, it is consistent with the declaration that the Philippines is democratic and republican state. So, hindi ka pwedeng mag-create ng mga ganyang bagay na mas makakataas sa'yo kasi we are in democratic and republican country which is people are all equal. Hindi pwede na may mataas yung law natin ay ginawa or ang batas natin para maroon tayo ng pagkapantay-pantay sa batas. Hindi pwede na mag-grant ka ng title sa mga royalty or nobility. So, walang ginawang batas ang ating gobyerno para sa ganyang bagay. Second, ma-prevent nito yung mga creation of privileged class which may transmit their classification by their inheritance to their children. So, na-prevent ito yung creation of privileged class. Kasi nga, di ba, here in our country, hindi pwedeng ganoon. People are equal, especially sa mata ng batas. Hindi pwede na magkaroon na batas para lamang sa mga matataas or may pera, hindi pwedeng ganon, which is sinusunod natin dito yung pagiging democratic and republican natin, which is people are unequal in the eyes of our law. And then third, it validly creates title of royalty or nobility and confirm them to the visiting dignitaries of the Congress. So for section 32, the last section of Article 6, the Congress shall as early as possible provide for a system of initiative and referendum and the exception therefrom whereby the people can directly propose and enact laws or approve or reject any act or law or part thereof passed by the Congress or local legislative body for the registration. So kapag pag sinabi naman nating initiative, it is the reverse power of the people na pwede silang directly propose and enact the laws. When we say referendum, ito yung people can accept or reject the law passed by the legislator. Sa referendum, meron tayong two kinds of referendum. Una, yung legislative referendum. Ang legislative referendum, ito yung legislator, kapag dinicide ng legislator na ilagay yung law doon sa ballot. Pero ang popular referendum, ito naman, when citizens get enough vote for the petition. So, paano yun na-acquire yung petition or na-approve? Na-approve siya kapag ang registration ng petition ay na-sign ng halos 10% of the total number of the registered voter sa every legislative district na narepresenta and at least 3% of the registered voters sa nasabing district.